Good afternoon. Hope everyone's well. Just going to quickly go through our normal checks for our live stream. So just checking the movement and checking the sounds. You can see we've got a spoon already in place. So just waiting a moment for the live stream to come in. Just going to quickly go through. Yeah, everything seems to be working fine. Let me know in the comments if it's not. Right, now this is a Lovespoon that we've been asked to make, and I know, for instance, the carver knows a little bit more on the background with this one, because the carver, we were actually talking as I was designing this one, and it's a big spoon and there's a lot on it. Basically, to fill some of you in with the different details, this is a bespoke Lovespoon request. As you can see, it's a lot larger than what we would normally do, and there's a lot more going on this spoon and with this spoon than we would normally be involved with and we would normally really advise. It's a piece of oak, and basically, to give you a background, this is a person who's had a Lovespoon done for them previously, and they wanted another spoon done, and they wanted it done along the same lines as the original. So my, how can I put it? My input with the design is slightly limited, slightly restricted. So it isn't necessarily what I would have advised, what I would have suggested, what I would have wanted then for a design. But this is what we do for a living, and there are times when we have to take on jobs and do things. Just that, have to be careful with that one there, just slipping down. Yeah, that we're doing things that might not be what we sort of suggest and advise. Nothing wrong with the spoon at all, just different to what we would do, and a little bit more to it in some ways than we would suggest. But for yourselves, it's good to see. Oh, hello there. We got the wood burning warrior. Thank you for joining us. There's been, yeah, I haven't heard from you for a while. Blessed with tons of wood burning. Very good. Oh, glad to hear you're busy. Thank you for joining us, and glad to hear things are busy. Good, good. Hope you've had chance as well. Hope you've been doing some wood carving. And yeah, so this is a little bit of a different project, and it's always good to do something different. And the symbols, the ideas, just a little bit different to what we're used to. Oh, excuse me. Whoa, that's a good start. Apologies for that. I'm sneezing at you all. There we are. So we're going to start off at the top of this Lovespoon. And I'm thinking straight away, we'll see how far we can get. So we've got like, I don't know whether you have these in the same way in the US, but this is like a police badge and the Bristol Constabulary. So obviously this particular Lovespoon has a link with the police. So somebody who's either been involved in the police, worked for the police. I would suggest that it is, because it's the number and things like that, I would suggest it's a police officer. I personally won't make something for someone unless it's if it is against my personal belief. Yeah, I did carve a scoop the other day. Oh, brilliant. Scoops and spatulas seem to be easy. Brilliant. Oh, glad to hear it. Yeah, it's one of those ones where it's not sort of, I mean, this is the sort of thing we make all sorts. And over the years, we've done all sorts of different things. It's more that the style, the ideas, the things that have gone into it, just a bit different to what we would do. There's nothing really that we object to. We're not anti-police, but you know, the ideas in it, they're just different. But it's good fun. Gives us a chance to do something we've never done before. So you can see we're just starting. The sort of most complex carvings on here, there's a few. I would suggest though, starting with this police badge at the top is a good starting point because it is probably the more complex, the more sort of detail, the more aspects to it. So, and it fits in because in terms of organising our carving, that's one method that we use, is where we start sort of top to bottom. Sometimes I jump about a bit, but as you'll have noticed from the different live streams, but hopefully, yeah, it'll come together nicely. I'd been cutting it out this morning, and Dad, I started, and then we had somebody in, and I was working on a design with them, and so he finished it off for me on the scroll saw. So we both worked on it, and what I've sort of found so far, we're working on this one. It's a nice piece of wood that we're using, and that's a good thing because it just makes the carving a little bit easier. It's a piece of oak, but it seemed to be quite a sympathetic piece of oak, and you know, a Lovespoon like that, we're going to be spending quite a bit of time working on it. So having a sympathetic piece of wood, it would have been a little bit daunting to have scroll sawed it this morning, and then you're thinking, wow, this is a tough piece of wood. So for instance, in the week, we've also been catching up on different orders, different spoons for our standard range online. And we were fortunate enough that we had a group in last week, and they brought with them a piece of oak that was from an old table that nobody wanted. Fantastic for us. I'm starting well. I'm sneezing, I'm dropping gouges. It's all happening. Yeah, so great for us having a free piece of wood. But that particular piece of wood is proving a little bit challenging to cut out. And what I'm finding with that piece of wood is that it's leaving little burn marks when I'm scroll sawing. So I'm having to change the blade a little bit more frequently with that one. But it's not a big problem because I'm carving our more standard range. But the point I'm getting to is that if I was trying to do this Lovespoon in that wood, that would have been more challenging because I'd have been changing the blades quite often. Because to give you an idea, this particular Lovespoon, if I count them up, I'm thinking, let's count it all up. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Add 5, so that's 28, 30, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. Right, so we've got around about 45, 50 internal cuts on this Lovespoon. And that's a lot of pierce work. So having a good piece of wood for scroll sawing and a good piece of wood for carving on this particular project is a necessity, really. And that's the sort of thing then you've got to think of, you know, when you're doing your different projects. What wood have you got there for doing the project, and having something suitable for the project is an important thing. We've also then designed it where, you know, there's different points. There's not just one point that we can hold it with in the vise. I'm doing my first show this weekend. Oh, brilliant. Oh, well, I hope your first show, I hope that goes very well for you. Ah, that's great. Always interesting. You'll probably meet some new faces and things like that, and it's always good for you get a bit of feedback on the stuff you're doing. And I mean, ourselves, we very much stick to being here at our workshop now. But when Dad, years ago, he used to do all sorts of different things like that. We basically, for ourselves, we've always found it's best to get people to come to our workshop. So and we are set up for visitors here, so it makes a difference with ourselves. As you can see, what I'm trying to do, we're just starting to get some of the shape and some of the depth on it. I'm carving the edges, just beveling the edges down to give it a little bit of depth. And if you're wondering what I'm doing, because I'm carving away the lines, I'm carving away part of the line, but I've still got a little bit of the line to use as a reference point. So I'm not completely taking it away. I know that there's sort of straight lines, so I'm keeping half of the line in and shaping the rest. And what I'm going to do then, one of the important things to do on this symbol, this police badge, to get right, is to get these circles. We need to get them marked out correctly. So it's important, excuse me, it's a very important thing to get the right tool, selecting the right tool to use. Also interested as well, hearing there from the wood burning warrior. It's great to hear what everybody is up to. Anybody else as well? What you're working on, what you're making, what have you been doing this week? Because we're all working on different things. I've also this week, I've been working on another video with the scroll saw project. That's been fun. We've got a few different themes. Last one we were doing some different animals, so these will be upcoming on the YouTube channel. This week, the things that are cutting out, there was a dragon, so there's a dragon design. I won't reveal the exact project that we will be demonstrating, but one of the designs in the project is a dragon, another is a hedgehog, but very simple versions of them. The other ones, then we had the star and the moon, so some stars and moon together. And what else did we do? I gotta think now. There were two other projects, because I tend to show 5 at a time. What were the other 2 that we had there? Oh, a fish, that was another one. And the final one has gone out of my mind. I can't remember. Weird question. Do you have a backrest on your stool chair? I've been standing on my workbench and my back's been hurting. No, I don't. Years ago, I had problems. I was involved in athletics, and it wasn't actually my back. Well, it was my back was causing the problem, but I had problems with my hamstrings, the back of my legs. And I was fortunate enough to meet a good physio, and he was basically saying it was from my work and the problem was coming from my back. And he changed my posture when I carved. So he made sure that when I was carving that my back was straight. And that makes a big difference. And what I find, because I sit to carve, I'm leaning forward. So even when I've had chairs that have got a backrest on them, I'm never actually using them. So yeah, because you sort of got your weight forward, and you're leaning, like at the moment, my head is sort of over where I'm carving, and I'm sitting slightly at an angle because this is such a large Lovespoon that I can't sort of get straight in terms of being behind the Lovespoon, but I'm still sitting straight, but I'm off at a sort of 45-degree angle, if that makes sense. Probably doesn't, but that's the I keep my back nice and straight. But yeah, you have got to look after your back when it comes to the carving. Always remember at different times when I've taught people, they've been surprised at how much stress the carving puts your back under. But for ourselves, because we're doing it every day, we just get used to it. And you'll find the same yourself. But that's one thing he suggests, because for instance, Dad, now when I first started carving, naturally I used the same technique as Dad, but he tends to have a different posture and slightly with one side of his back slightly closed off, and that can cause a few problems. Hello to the carver, thank you for joining us. I've mentioned yourself with this one. You will have been the first one of everybody to have seen this particular Lovespoon, so you know the story behind the story. Let's put it that way. So yeah, this is it's made it to our workbench. There were times when it was seeming like it might not have, but it's made it, and I think it's going to be a nice spoon. I'm quite optimistic about it now. So we were explaining how it wasn't our normal style, and it wasn't what we would normally do, but yeah, I think it'll come together quite nicely. It's the nicest part of this one is that so far this piece of oak is a pleasure to work with. Now Thomas the Woodcarver, he's just walked in here. You're going to wish everyone a pranang da. He's hobbling along today.
Pranang da, everyone.
His ankle's swollen up like a balloon, and it looks like he's probably sprained it, but he can't remember spraining it. So
I'm overworked and underpaid. That's what it is.
You being paid here?
Eh?
I see you being paid here. You don't even know when you sprained it. No. He showed me his ankle, and it was all swollen and bruised and didn't look too clever. But
you know what they say: no sense, no feeling.
That's right. He can't remember actually spraining it. So that's what's happening in the workshop. And you've had an interesting morning, haven't you? Because we always. I mean, a big part of what we do, big part of everything that we do, is always sharing information with everyone that. You know, if we're encountering any problems, any issues, then we share it with everyone, because your day started with contacting Royal Mail, didn't it?
Yeah, did we speak about it last week?
I'm not sure that we did.
About postage?
No. Well, basically, we've started having people contacting us. How big did it turn out to be? All I would say, how's it big to it? It's big. It's big. I'll show you the whole thing again now. Yeah, it's a big spoon, a big spoon. Yet I don't think we fully discussed it with the postage. But basically, what it is, we've had one parcel going out to Spain, and paid for all the postage, paid everything that we've been asked to pay, and they've had a letter telling them that if they want their parcel, it's going to cost them €50. Yeah. We've had another parcel then that's gone out to Cyprus, and they had to pay €30. 30 euros for that. Yeah, and then so we sort of think that this might be Brexit reaction stuff. So we sort of understood that. And we've had another parcel that's gone out to the US. We've never had this before. We've had them delayed at different times, but it's been stuck in customs in Chicago for a month. And again, we thought that, up until now, we always understood that arts and crafts going to the US were exempt from customs. So yeah, our spoon is stuck. So if anyone's near Chicago, if you can have a word with customs, we'd appreciate it. We discussed the postage Monday before last, 2 or 3 weeks ago. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Right. Well, these are all problems then that are cropping up for us. The reason we're passing it on is because this is getting ridiculous. I mean, we've taken Cyprus off our. If you're in Cyprus, sorry guys, you can't have a spoon any longer. We've already taken Australia and New Zealand off because of the rules and regs with wood.
And it's very difficult because a lot of the spoons we're making are for either weddings or celebrations, and if they're being held,
well, they're going to be missing celebrations. So we don't know what's going on out there, but it's a bit. And the other thing as well, where it's difficult, like for yourselves, if you are doing anything like that, shipping internationally, where it's difficult is I had to pay $55 for postage to Germany. Yeah, it's crazy. It's mad what's going on. Yeah. It just seems like another way that they can steal money from us, really, because we're sending it in good faith, and then the people who are collecting it at the other end are being stung.
Yeah, but there's also another sort of problem, because our post office
Yeah.
don't clearly display that you may be charged.
We're only
the
finding
other
out.
side. You
That's
understand?
right.
They're not making it clear in our post office.
No. No, and so we're now, it just, you know, if you've got websites and things like that, we're updating and telling people, you know, we're actually putting it in the terms and conditions. Please be aware that basically your respective customs may decide to steal a bit of money off you for the privilege of making your purchase.
And also, there may be a situation here where a certain company that's taking over the world.
Well, I would be very interested if there's a certain unnamed company or names, as in Amazon. I'd be interested to know what sort of customs
deal have they got.
What's happening with their products when it comes to customs? Because it's, you know, these sorts of things are going to really hit people like ourselves, so the small businesses, people like yourselves. You know, it's just another thing then that we're going to have to do to survive. It's another thing to make it more difficult for us. When's it going to end? That's what we want to know. Because it's a shame, because all it's doing is sort of pushing us. It pushes us another step towards, well, we can't sell internationally. So now we can't sell internationally. We can't sell in the workshop. So, you know, eventually, where are we going to be allowed to sell any longer? Crazy times we're living in. So you can see what I've done. I've marked out there was the number C22 in the middle. So I've marked out initially, and I'm thinking, when you're doing a carving like this, it's got to be like your interpretation. Is it soapbox time? Yeah, come on, Thomas. I don't think you can stand on a soapbox today, though, with his ankle. I'm worried he'd fall off. So I think that's rant over for the day, probably, because we can't have no soapbox standing. Maybe that's what happened. Maybe one of your rants, you fell off your soapbox.
I think we may have to change the day that we do this live stream.
All right.
Well, Monday, Dave, it's a bad day.
Why is Monday a bad day? Well, everything happens on a Monday.
Everything happens on a Monday.
Thomas the Woodcarver's, he's how can I describe? He's the rest of the week. The rest of the week, he's going around singing songs and full of the joys of life.
Just another manic Monday.
It's just Mondays. So you can see what we're doing. So we've marked out the engraving for the centre, and what I'm doing with this again.
You're working blind, Dave. You don't know what you're doing, do you?
There we are. No, I got a picture in. I got a picture in my brain. So that's I got a picture in my brain because a police badge. I've seen them. I've seen them in the past, and they are sort of curved and shaped.
Right.
So again, as Dad always says with it, it's an impression. So you've got that always to fall back on. You don't have to worry too much about, you know, the exact bits. But my idea is to round the centre, have this band more proud, and then to put all the lines on, but to push back the outside of the shield. I don't know. But as I said, you can see the processes that we go through. We're taking off half of the line, but I don't want to take off all of the line on the outside because I want to use the rest of it for these lines to still have them in position. Yeah, I've seen as well. The carver sent us some great images. It's good to see your stock is coming together for the Christmas market. We've been doing our video for this year. Christmas. We're there already, planning for Christmas.
Thank you. Just reminded me, I got two.
And if you think we've gone mad and it's far too early for being thinking about these things, we've had an order, haven't we?
Yeah.
For 3 Christmas tree decorations. So we've been filming. I'm thinking actually, I've got a few different ideas for what we're going to do.
They're evergreen. Those particular spoons.
Evergreens.
They're evergreens. They'll sell anytime.
They do, yeah, they do. So we've sold 3 Dove Christmas tree decorations, basically. But I've got an idea I've got a few different ideas. We filmed one video, and some of the projects that are on it are variations on Christmas products that we previously done. And that'll probably be on the channel for everyone to see September, October time. So the idea is, you know, if people are wondering, well, why do we put them on as early as that? Our thinking is if you want to have a go at making them for Christmas, it gives you plenty of time to have a go. And then we did have a sort of few ideas for Christmas again, more then towards December, possibly a little something a bit different on the channel. I'm starting to look, starting to think about how we're going to do these lines, because I'm not a big one, I'll be honest, this is me, I'm not a big one for sort of straight lines. I know these are all supposed to be straight lines, but I think they'd be nicer with a bit of curve, personally. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I prefer that. A little bit of curve like that. And then what I can do, I can go into there, and I can go into there. I prefer that. I think that's going to be nicer. But is it going to cause me a problem doing it? No, I can do it with one of the other curved ones. So you can, the idea with this, you can do, you know, I'm talking through the process. This is what I'm thinking as I'm doing it. I'm just working out how can I get the different details to work, basically. Yeah, that's how I'm going to do it. So what we do, see, we mark out the stop cut into the stop cut, and then use the reverse angle of the gouge to give it some nice depth and nice detail. Because I'm thinking this will be easiest if we leave that proud, so if we leave that raised. Same again, cut into that stop cut that we've marked, and then use the reverse angle of the gouge to cut in like so. Yeah, I like that. That's got to be, that reverse angle's got to make that line just a little bit more prominent. And then I'm going to just adapt it just to give us a little bit more of a gap to there. Yeah, that's coming on quite nicely. Get those comments in as well if you've got any questions, or if you want to know anything about the process, or anything about how we went about designing this spoon. I mean, on that front, we basically, this very different process for ourselves for designing. We were sent some photos of the original, and basically the person who wanted this is saying, can you make this? With my answer initially was yes, but I there were certain things that I would have preferred to adapt, but they were quite clear that they wanted it like the original. So I basically, that's part of working with the general public. You've got to try your best to do what they want, and hopefully it'll be what they want. We'll also, with this one, we've had to take into account as well, this will have to be shipped out to them, so that takes into the equation as well, because it's a large Lovespoon. The carver was asking, I forgot to show, here we go, there you go. I'll move it slowly. This one here, and I'll explain some of the background with it. There you go. So that's it, from bowl. You've got all these names. So there's 1, 2, 3 generations. Then you come past the church, and then into a 4th generation, and then the badge, and then the top of the spoon. There we are. So yeah, we with this one, if you take on a project like this with this sort of size. So for instance, I know the carver has done the same as us. I can't see it well enough to complain. It's yeah, well, this one here, to give you a little insight, when you're working on the scroll saw, this is too big to fit. So what you have to do, you can only work, quite often you can only work in 3 directions as opposed to 4 or all directions as you would normally. And if you're wondering what on earth are you talking about, basically our scroll saw from blade to the back of the scroll saw, I think is 17 inches, and this Lovespoon is too long, and it then hits the back of the scroll saw. So that causes us a problem because it's hitting the back of the scroll saw and you can't go any further. It basically limits how much you can cut. So you can only work really in 3 directions as opposed to multi-direction that we normally would. Now this one here, I'm just looking, yeah, look at that. This is the gouge again that we used last week, and I think it's going to be a better size and shape just for finishing off down the bottom here. So it's surprising how I haven't used this gouge all the week, and then we come to do the live stream. This must be my gouge that likes 5 minutes of 5 minutes of people watching it, because when I come to do my live streams, it seems to always prove useful. What it is, that one there is a fraction longer, so I'm going to be cutting into that heart. So you start looking, well, how can I overcome that issue? And the answer is, this is a lovely little gouge that is perfect size just to fit that gap. So yeah, when you're cutting out with the scroll saw, you just have that limitation. So it took us a lot longer to cut this Lovespoon out because of the limitation that you have with the length of the bed. I hope that makes sense. I'll hold on making any of my previous smart yeah, probably best to save those in the live stream anyway. So yeah, we can see that shape around the outside, and again, as we mentioned, it's an impression, gives you an idea of the decoration around the outside of the badge. There, now we're just change it a little bit, the angle, and again, so you cut in, you mark that stop cut, you cut into the edge, and then you can use the reverse angle like so. So cut into the edge. I'm not too worried that that one has just caught a little bit there. That's okay, because afterwards we'll shape that and you won't be able to see it. So again, we're just going to work our way in, just like so. We don't want to go too far into that heart because that will cause me a problem. But I'm just hopefully going to tidy that up. And then the same again, another one. So what I've done it at this angle on this side, and then I've done the opposite angle, so the opposite way on the other side. And hopefully it'll be fairly symmetrical, fairly even on both sides. Famous last words. It's coming on, it's taking shape. We'll go back over on the inside of this one as well. So we carry on shaping it. Afterwards, I'll sand it all down. So we get to a certain level with it. And we'll remark out our stop cuts on this. So this was the approach we did a couple of weeks ago. We did the globe, and this is the approach that originally I was going to take with that one, but it just didn't work out as I wanted. And we got that one there. Just cut in at an angle. One of the things we also have to do now is, because we put that paper drawing on, you have to get enough depth on the carving, because afterwards you're going to be putting that on the belt sander and taking that paper drawing off. It might be the right kind of project to break out a spiral blade. You're spot on, and thank you for reminding me this, because that is a point that I was going to raise. Spiral blades, yeah. This, on paper, is the perfect job for spiral blades. On paper, and in theory, it is ideal. So, for any of you who don't do scroll sawing, just to explain the background on that, the spiral blade, when we're scroll sawing, if I'm scroll sawing that, you end up cutting and you're turning the spoon round like that. Difference with the spiral blade, it'll cut in any direction, so you can cut it out like that. So in theory, the spiral blade is perfect for a job like this one, because you've got that limitation of the throat of the machine. All I would say is that just try using spiral blades, and I shall say no more, other than those things were an invention from a terrible place, because I have never been able to get on with spiral blades. I don't know, I love the idea of them, I love the theory and that exact thing of how this should be a straightforward project for a spiral blade. But whenever I've tried it, it doesn't work. So that is my experience with the spiral blade. Whatever I've tried to do, I've never had any success working with them. And I think I just accept it's the way they cut. So a spiral blade, they kind of, I get another opinion on it as well from Thomas the Woodcarver, but a conventional blade, like the standard blade, has the teeth pointing and it cuts up and down, cuts straight. Good morning, Marcia, thank you for joining us. Yeah, that's your standard blade, cuts up and down. Reverse tooth blade has those teeth running in the opposite direction. So it cuts most of it on the sort of top percentage, 90% of the spoon cuts in the one direction, and because the teeth are going in the opposite direction, it gives you a cleaner cut on the bottom edge. So that's the idea behind them. Spiral blades just seem to chew. They just seem to chew at the wood, so they don't give you the clean cut that I'm looking for. But that may be a personal thing, because I know others use spiral blades and use them successfully. But I personally have tried them at different times, and no, they don't do it for me. So I've never had any success working with spiral blades. In theory, fantastic. In practice, no, doesn't work. And I don't know why, but I think it's the method that they cut. But we have given them a couple of goes, and they just haven't been able to do the job that we want them to do. But as again, try them out and see how anybody who's interested in the scroll sawing, try out the spiral blades, see how you get on with them. Now we're getting some nice little bits of detail into the carving. I'm actually been carving upside down, so I'm gonna swing it round and take a look at it just to see, because I've added a few extra lines in here, because what I don't want is a lot of detail on one side and not as much detail on the other side. So we're just cutting into those edges, and just to give that sort of decoration for the outside of the badge. I love using reverse tooth. Yeah, same here. The reverse tooth blade, fantastic. We always say it, people ask us all the time, what blade do you use? And I always say the same one, Nikwa, reverse tooth, number 9. But I would say, have a go with the, don't just take our word for when we say things. Try different blades and see how you get on with them. I share our experience working with them, and those things are, they're not I don't know. I don't know what. I'd rather not say too much of my honest opinions on spiral blades because they're not. I'll upset the spiral blade users because there's some fantastic scroll sawers who do some fantastic work on it. But for myself, must be. I think part of it as well is what you get used to using. So I'm used to using the reverse tooth. And with all, you know, the different machines and the different kit, all the machines and all the different things that you'll work with, they all have their own little quirks, their own strengths and weaknesses. And I guess because I know every strength and weakness of my setup, that's why it's sort of difficult to move away. So for instance, the only comparison I could give is with the cameras. So I went from working with what they called, that's good, I've forgotten the name, begins with an N, Nikon or Nikon as you call them in the US. So I always use Nikon, and when I changed across to Sony initially, I was thinking, what on earth is this doing? And some of the colour things were a bit strange, but once I got used to it, it was a better system because it was an upgrade on what I had. But initially it took me a while to get used to. So you can just see we're getting some nice, yeah, I'm quite happy with how that is coming along. We give ourselves a little bit of artistic license, so I haven't stuck exactly to all of those lines because we've got to make it, again, we've got to make it practical. Got to make it where it works. And we're just going to work our way all around the outside. We're also, I'll tell you what we're going to do, just to change things up a little bit. We're going to work on these other parts of the designs because I'm finished there. I'm not going to be damaging the top of that any longer. What does the badge say, if I may ask, and how do you carve such tiny lettering? We'll do some lettering for you to see. The badge, it says Bristol Constabulary, and then it's got a number in the middle, C22. So this particular Lovespoon, I am very much assuming, is for a police officer, and it's their sort of whole family tree. Not my design, their design, well, the design is my design, but the design ideas, I had less input in terms of the design than probably any Lovespoon that I've made this year. And what we're going to do, this is where we have some crafty little gouges and they come in really useful. So that one there and that one, I'm hoping that the camera can focus on it. It is tiny. Tiny, tiny. So they are micro gouges and they're going to get us out of trouble because otherwise this would be a very, very difficult engraving. Where was I going with this? Yeah, here. Oh, it's not going to do the job. It'll do that one then. Yeah, the micro gouges. Robert Sorby, have a little look online at Robert Sorby. They do micro gouges. And for engraving over the years, we've used those gouges a lot. Thomas Woodcarver.
Yes,
I got a thought. We've been talking spiral blades.
right.
And I've been explaining that those blades I cannot get on with. What's your thoughts on them? Why is it that they don't cut like the reverse tooth?
I would say, I mean, it's, first of all, I mean, we had to twist them around to actually fit in the
Fit the scroll saw.
to fit the scroll saw.
But the finish that you get off a spiral blade,
no, I mean, we
doesn't compare.
We didn't push it too hard. Cause the thing is, if you're happy with spiral blades, that's fine.
No, absolutely. And I mean, there is some really nice work produced with spiral blades, but it.
Yeah.
I think basically the reverse tooth blade gives you such a clean finish that there's an element of frustration of going from the one to the other. And it's probably the same for users of spiral blades. they probably find the same thing going the other way.
I mean, whichever one you use, even with the reversed ones, if I can just put that, the back of that.
Yeah, so that's off the back of the reverse tooth blades, and there's still a little whisker on there, and we'll still carve it.
We still have to take that off.
Yeah.
It's all down to the individual.
Yeah.
How.
I think there's what an element comes into it. We're working in hardwood. I wonder whether in other materials, a lot of people scroll saw. I see a lot of people scroll saw in things like plywood, MDF,
Right.
and softwood as well.
Yeah. So I mean, it might. The
So-
spiral one might.
so
be
the
suitable
spiral
for-
blade-
I'm only guessing might be suitable for.
It may be
the
more.
MDF, for
Well, it may
instance.
be more suitable for one of the other materials.
And it depends again on
What you're happy
what
with,
you're
isn't it?
making and what kind of finish you want. So there's no definitive. I just want to push that one in the way, Dave, so they can see. I don't know whether you can pick the colour of that.
Look at that. That's a nice piece of oak.
Yeah, we have a little piece of oak coming through.
It's
and,
proper golden oak, that one.
Yeah,
Eh?
it is definitely superb.
And this is the thing. Wood is fascinating because I mentioned the woods that we had brought into us last week with the group. That was a kitchen table, and that was fascinating because when I was scroll sawing that, it was a bit of a nightmare because it was burning. Okay, it was burning, and I'm thinking, oh, blimey, heck, this is going to be for carving. I'm going to have fun and games carving this one. Got it on the bench, started carving it. It was absolutely fine. It just wasn't ideal for cutting on the machine. And this is what you find. Like for instance, now, a lot of the cherry that we have in, and you'll have to bear with us because in the UK we have the fruit cherry, we have the flowering cherry. So I know in the US you call it different names. You know, I'm not sure if the carver referred to dogwood and sourwood and things like this, but we all know it as the it has a sort of you have more names, you're more descriptive. We sort of just call cherry and cherry, basically fruit and flowering, and that wood we always have a new scroll saw blade because it doesn't like being scroll sawed particularly. But the finish you get on it is beautiful, and when you come to carve it, it carves really nicely. So you find that different woods, they'll have their different sort of quirks and their different strengths and weaknesses. This spoon you're asking for the story with it. Yeah, I don't fully know the story, but it's an anniversary.
It's the gentleman's.
It's an anniversary, so the couple.
Children, grandchildren, and.
Yeah, so you've got the couple, obviously a police link, two symbols, daffodil and the shamrock. So you've got a Welsh-Irish link there. You've got the church and the wedding date. And what they probably didn't realise as well, we do little quirky things that people probably don't even realise. On the spoon, I noticed that they actually had the time of the wedding. So we'll set the clock. We put a clock on the church and we'll set the time on the clock of the church to the wedding time, which is something that they may or may not have realised. But it's just little things that we do. At some stage, you would imagine that somebody else will notice it. If they don't notice it themselves, somebody will point it out to them. And it's little quirky things like that that we do just to give it a little extra touch. You've got the rings entwined together. Horseshoe, representing, of course, good luck, good fortune. Children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. So you've got a whole sort of generation and family tree. There's a lot going on in this spoon. More going on than I personally would have recommended. But this is what you'll find, is that we've all got different ideas, we've all got different thoughts, and we do our best to cater for everybody and the individuals. Dogwood is the flowering cherry for you. There we are. A clock and a nice touch. Yeah, it's little quirky little things like that you know, if we can pick up on little details that perhaps they won't even realise themselves, hopefully it just adds something, just adds an extra element to it. But that's what it is. It's, yeah, so for an anniversary. See, we're just shaping parts of this top panel, and what I will also do for you to see, I will do the engraving on the two hearts. There's a lot of little bits to be done on this spoon. It's taking shape, making decent progress already, but there's going to be a lot of hours spent working on this one. And myself now, I know that I might, we're hoping to be able to see my wife's family, so I may be away for a bit. So this was a job that I knew I wanted to get done before I was away. If I do go away as well, I am hoping, if I can find some Wi-Fi while I'm away, I'm hoping to do some more live streams while I'm away. But the ideas I've got for sort of sharing is what I actually do then with my time while I'm away. So one would be looking at the designing and the process that I go through, and that's because that's something that I do then when I go away. I use that time productively to relax, but also come up with new ideas, come up with new designs. And the other thing then we do is to try and get hold of some wood, because when we go across to see Yolanda's family, it's a good opportunity. Spain is a fantastic country for natural resources, and they don't use them a lot themselves when it comes to things like carving. So,
And while you're away, I will be dealing with some cruise ships, Dave.
yeah, we've had inquiries from cruise ships to come in. So the cruise ships want to come in, and so Dad will be explaining about the tradition.
They're all British ones, they are.
Yeah, that's right. And where are they coming into? Milford Haven or Fishguard?
I think it's Fishguard.
Fishguard. So that's where they come into locally. And we share a little bit of the tradition with them, and the stories of our family spoons, and a bit about what we do. This one will keep us busy for a while. I think it will be keeping us busy for a while, this one. It's already kept us busy for quite a while. So give you an idea, and this is what happens, you know, because we're doing bespoke work and doing it to the request of people. Off the top of my head, I think I designed this Lovespoon 4 times.
Yeah.
And this is something then that you've got to take into account. So you have to budget. You know, this is what we do for a living, so you have to be thinking about all the different elements. You know, what can I, like last week was a good example. That Lovespoon we were working on last week left us, it was challenging, in some ways more challenging than this one, because in fairness, with this Lovespoon, the individual involved with this one, they had an idea in their mind, very specific idea, but they were not pushing us when it came to a specific price. And so it's basically they wanted their idea created, and that can make a difference, because I'm not thinking, you know, I'm not at this stage now and thinking, right, I'm running out of budget in terms of the time I'm putting into it. As last week, that was something that was more prominent then in what was being done. A nice spoon, but presenting its own challenges. Right, now I think we got to the stage. I think Thomas the Woodcarver's getting tired.
No, it's in tablets your mother gave me.
Oh, he's on the tablets because of he seems to have sprained his ankle. but he can't remember spraining his ankle. That's the tablets again, probably, isn't it? You couldn't remember before you took the tablets, though, saying that.
No.
So there we are. We've got a little bit done on that top panel. So you can see we've got a long way to go. But I think it's relevant to put a little bit of the engraving now to show you the process. So we're going to need these two gouges here. And the first name, now I'm always a bit nervous when it comes to sort of engravings and certain things, because if you run out of space, then what are you going to do? Not a lot. Not a lot that you can do.
We're going to carve it all out and start again.
You're spot on. So if you couldn't hear Thomas Woodcarver, as he said, if you do run out of space, you've got to carve the whole thing out and start all over again, which is a little bit depressing. So we do our best not to run out of space. So one thing I've done is to angle these names, and by angling them, we've got a little bit more width on the heart. And at this stage, I'm feeling quite confident because I can see that the widths, I've drawn the E's quite large, which is good. That's helping me. And I can get it into those spaces. We're not guaranteed yet, but I'm more confident than when I first started. Here we are. So hopefully you can see what we're doing basically to explain the process. We're using our little mini gouges and then a chisel to do that line across on the E, to do all of the stop cuts. So we get all of our stop cuts onto the woods. And if you're wondering why did I not start with the D, why did I start with the O? Basically, the capital, I know that I can adjust the width to fill the gap. As with the smaller letters, I know that it's more difficult to do that. Di, that's not a little depressing. That's a lot depressing. Indeed. Very depressing. So yeah, I know that I can adjust. So basically, what I can do, the capital letter is easier to adjust the width than the smaller letters because we're working pretty much on the minimum for the small letters. So the D, if you do it last, you just fill the gap that you're left with. As if I'd have started with the D and done a big D, and then you've filled too much of the hearts, you've got a problem. Now where this is going to be challenging though is because I'm probably going to have to carve the letters on there a couple of times because I've got to get rid of all the paper drawing. So it's a challenging, and this is why I budgeted specifically for the engraving, because I know I've got several hours of engraving names on here. So we won't be able to demonstrate all of the names to you, but I may do, what I may do is to demonstrate this top one and then film all the other ones being engraved so you can see the process. So you can see we do all the stop cuts, and then afterwards we just take out a little bit of detail into the edge of the stop cuts. A lot of, it's very popular, and I'm guessing, well, not guessing, but I know, like for instance, the wood burning warrior, pyrography and things like that is a popular method for doing the engraving, but we've always hand carved it on there. And for instance, over the years, we've done a lot of incumbent boards in the churches, that sort of thing. But it's a time-consuming process. You have to work, you know, just one single E has got 1, 2, 3, 4 stop cuts, 4 stop cuts, and then 4 cuts of taking the detail out. So you've got 8 cuts altogether. So let me show you. You've got 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the same amount of stop cuts on each E that we carve. And what we're going to do, we'll have to, I reckon I'm going to have to end up going over this 3 times. So basically, what is that? If I have to go over it 3 8, 8, 16, 24. So every E that I go over will be 24 cuts. And this is where you've got to work out then, you have to budget for that. And I do find that the engraving, it can be quite, not just time consuming, it can be quite physically demanding as well, because it's very fine work. So there we are. That's the first version of Doreen. I say you should have charged per letter. If we'd have charged per letter, because our normal system is 50p per letter or number. And I'm thinking on here, wow, that's a lot of 50p's, put it that way. Now with the Barry coming down at the other angle, I'm going to start off, I'm conscious that I've gone in there, so I'm just going to drag that across. I think I'm going to start with the R, but I'm going to start with the R just for there. And so this is what you're doing with the engraving, is you're making judgments on where you can position things. And it's not to say that you're going to judge it correctly, because we don't always do that. But you're trying to use the space most effectively, and you're trying to get the engraving the best you possibly can. But it's tricky. It is tricky. Let's have a little look. You used to do it, didn't you? You used to do it where people would come in the workshop and you wouldn't charge. You didn't have any charge for doing engraving, did you?
Nope.
And that was one thing, excuse me, when I started with Dad in the workshop. Just going to have a little drink, 2 seconds, sorry. When I started working with him, that was one of the first things that we sort of said about introducing. And we introduced 50p per letter or number. We still engraved 2 initials in the price of each spoon, but anything extra works out 50 per letter or number, and it's the same then. The website is set up for 2 initials.
You learn as you go along.
Yeah, you do.
Human nature being what it...
Well, what would happen, so you'd have a group would come in and the first person would ask for Elizabeth and Jonathan, and then the next one would go, oh, that's nice. And then the next one would want Elizabeth and Jonathan. And then the next one would come up and they say, oh, that's nice. And they want Elizabeth and Jonathan and the date. And so it would go. And that's difficult, isn't it?
Well, by the time you'd finish with it, you'd have Elizabeth, Jonathan, the 2 children, Zebedee and Walter,
And chapter and verse.
the dates of the 2 children, the dates they went to college.
The 10 Commandments.
Yeah. So it's
and
quite interesting how it
chapter
changed.
and verse of War and Peace.
When you said then, 2 initials are free,
Yeah.
but if you want extra, it's 50p.
Surprising how
per
much.
letter.
And it's surprising that tends to.
Surprising how many people didn't have any more children.
That's right. And it's surprising, just that thing. Most people then they're not as interested in having the initials. You know, they're happy having the initials on the spoon.
In fairness, a lot of people, they say we don't care what it costs.
That's the other side of it. Yeah, that's the other side of it. But most people are happy. They say, oh no, 2 initials is fine. Because they understand. That's the thing. A lot of the time is that people don't understand the work involved.
Oh, I got a good one now.
What's that?
Well, what would be the views here now when people, you want a love spoon,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
It's for your son or your daughter
Oh yeah.
who's getting maybe married or engaged.
Oh, this is we
And
want.
they-
Yeah, we
we'll
definitely
say-
want. We
we'll
want.
say it's for Mary and John.
Well, we want answers. We want answers for you all, from you all on this one. Yeah, it's for your son or daughter. Whose initial do you put first? Do you put your son or daughter's initial first, or do you put your future in-law? Do you put their initial first? So we want answers off everyone with this. Whose initial do you put first? This is a bone of contention. This one.
Yeah, this is a good one.
This is quite revealing. This.
Yeah.
I-
This is where the marriage guidance, I think we could start a marriage guidance
service.
service, yes.
No, there it is. So there we go. Yeah, whose initial comes first? Your son or daughter, or your future in-law? No answers yet. No answers on that one yet.
No, I'm thinking about this one.
You have a good think about that one.
Yeah.
Whose initial comes first?
This could make or break the future relationship.
So you can see we're back to just shaping around the outside as well. So there's a lot to this spoon, a lot of detail and a lot of aspects. Still no answers.
No answers.
There's a reluctance to answer this one.
Is there a straight chisel you're using, or is it
There's a slight curve,
slight curve?
a very slight curve, and I changed to this one. It's very interesting actually. I used it in last week's live stream with all of the laurel leaves. I haven't used it all the week, and then back to the live stream, and we're using it again. So it's a good one for getting out of trouble. What was the question? Right, here's the question again. So, you're getting a love spoon, and it was for your son or for your son or daughter, and you're gonna have the initials on it.
Inside a heart.
So you got two hearts or one heart, and you're gonna have the initials of your son or daughter on the love spoon. Whose initial goes first? Is it your
whose
son?
initial goes on the left as you look at it.
Is it your son or daughter's initial that you put first on your love spoon, or do you put your future in-law? So
But it doesn't have to be a daughter and a son-in-law. It could be partners.
Treat it like a tattoo. Children are forever. They come first. Oh dear. That's quite an effect on Thomas the Woodcarver there. So there we are. We got a response from the carver. What Marcia says, and some will put her maiden name in
Parenthesis, is it?
parenthesis before the new last name. Which is interesting, yeah, because my wife, of course, Yolanda, it being Spanish, her name has never changed. It's our children who have, their name is Thomas Minyo, so our surname is Thomas, and then Minyo being her dad's surname. And interestingly, what is his name? Thomas Minyo. So, yeah. There we are. So some interesting insight. The male goes on the left as you look, with the female on the right. Oh, now we're really getting into trouble.
Yeah. Well, you remember the one was it for Spain?
Oh no, that's interesting because is that along the lines of at the wedding, the bride and groom? Which side does the bride go on? Which side does the groom go on? You know, the families. Yeah. As you're in the church, as you're facing it, the groom is here in the UK. The groom is on the right, or it was when we did it. Did we do it right? The groom is on the right and the bride is on the left. But that's as you're looking down the church.
This can be a very important decision. We've had quite sort of
Well, this has ended up being discussed at,
we've had
at
quite
great
sort
length
of
in the workshop.
definitive.
I think we told the story of the man who was in the workshop though, and he was on a trip with his wife and his ex-wife, and he managed to put his ex-wife's initials on the Lovespoon. We explained that one, I think, didn't we? That was a Lovespoon blooper.
That was a real blooper.
I had to run in the back room and carve it out quick before anyone saw it. He was nearly on the trip with 2 ex-wives, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Have we got any other thoughts? Holy bride on the right, groom is on the left. So I'm thinking, is this different then for? Because I'm thinking, when I stood in the church, I was on the right as you're looking down the church. But are they thinking? Is it thinking as you? If you're facing the other way, I was on the right.
Well, we're now realising how difficult this is for a Lovespoon maker, you say? And you thought life was easy for a Lovespoon maker. I mean, what a decision you got to make. Oh, dear me.
Hopefully as well, seeing a piece like this one sort of being carved gives you an idea that, you know, when you have just a seemingly innocuous carving in some ways, like the badge, you know, I've been carving here over an hour, and when I actually stop and look at how far I've got, you think, blimey heck, there's a lot to this. There's going to be a lot of carving to this Lovespoon. I think the leaves and the hearts should take shape a little bit more quickly, but all of this detail around here, there's a lot of time that's going to go into.
It's developing, though. It's nice, isn't it? You know, and it's at this point in time, you know, you're thinking, do I enjoy my work? And it's nice.
I think, you know,
it's something that these are the kind of things you enjoy. These are the kind of things that you realise that you do enjoy your work.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of, you know, I look at it and I think, well, with all of that detail, you would hope that they would be pleased. That's what I'm thinking of, you know, is when they see all of the little bits of detail in it, you would hope that they would be pleased, you know, with the finished result. That's what's in my mind at the moment. You would be disappointed if they weren't, basically. And I'm also, as well, in terms of the thought process, I'm thinking about how we're going to do these little bits at the top there. Yeah, no one believes that. I think you are correct. That really does make me think. It does indeed. Yeah. I was thinking as the pasta looks out. Right. So yeah, he's that's as he's looking. Yeah. So as you're looking, yeah, as what we call the vicar, as they're looking, hang on. Then the bride is on the. Oh, I've turned myself around. I'm confused now. So then the bride is on the right and the groom is on the left. There we are.
But
I'm getting mixed up with me left and right now.
And that still doesn't answer the question. The original question is, on your Lovespoon, which side do you put your daughter or son's
there we are.
initial or name?
So we've had the
As you look at the Lovespoon, do you put your son or daughter?
Well, basically, this thing is that
on the right.
To give you the background on this one, let's give a few stories with it. Thomas the Woodcarver. We have people in, and what happens? We sort of at different times have suggested putting your in-law, your future in-law, putting them first. And it's very interesting because you have people in the workshop and they'll be absolutely horrified, absolutely adamant that their child would not be going second on the spoon. Their child has to be first. And so we always say, well, it's, you know, it's a gesture because, you know, you're welcoming them into the family and things like that. And sometimes people are absolutely horrified to think that you would suggest that their child would be anything other than
Priority.
the first on. So it's an interesting insight. I mean, Dad has always said over the years he thinks that it would be a good idea for married couples couples that are engaged to design a love spoon, because you learn a lot about the other person in the process. You know, doing an activity like that, you learn a lot about how they think. And
there's so many little questions like,
there's an element, isn't it, where quite often there's an element of compromise needed, and then you find out that, you know, you will have some people and there is no compromise in them whatsoever. So fine if you can cope with that in a marriage.
That's right. But you say, you know, you even when you've
I've answered the question for a question. Who is the spoon for?
Well, that's the point. It's for the bride and groom.
Now, this is interesting as well. The pastor introduces introduces the new couple as Mr. and Mrs. There we are. That's an interesting. We did say, you did always say as well, look, ladies first and things like this as well. I don't know if that's old-fashioned now. Apologies if it is. This is the kind of carving that makes you better at what you do, because it will not leave your shop until it matches standards. Yeah, absolutely. Either that or I'll get fed up with it and it'll go. No, it's the kind of carving that, thankfully, as I said last week, was a different type of pressure. But that's why it's good with the live stream, so you to sort of see it. Last week was a different type of pressure, and more pressure in some ways, because I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I got limited time on this spoon because of the circumstances. I'm really limited on how much I can put into it, because, and it's not, when I'm saying that, I'm not having a go at the customer, I'm not having a go at the person who's asked us to do it. The reason I say it is because how can I justify spending longer on a spoon that is worth less? I can't justify that if I'm spending longer on a spoon, for example, that's £100 than a love spoon that's £200. You've got to be fair to the customer. Yeah. If they're willing to spend that, then you have to, that's my opinion anyway, you have to then back that up. You know, you have to be fair to the amount of money that each individual customer has invested into their love spoon. So that is why, you know, what I was saying last week was not having a go at the individual by any means. It was just saying that, you know, I've got to be fair to all customers, and I can't spend more time on a lower valued project, and put it that way. It's amazing all the different aspects that you have to think of when it comes to making a love spoon, and any project, as you all know. All your different projects you're working on, there's lots of things you have to think of.
Well, yeah, back on that subject of, you know, who goes first. I mean, it's interesting when when we design the spoon for somebody, you know, we ask different things, different questions, and one of the questions, especially if it's bride and groom together, even not even the parents, the same sort of question at the end. We say, so what kind of wood would you like?
Yeah.
So then you have to decide, you know, so we say, well, you know, what kind of furniture have they got? What sort of, you know, what is it going to match, or is it going to contrast? So you have to think about the people that you're giving this gift to.
Well, the other thing that I would say as well, over the years, one thing I've noticed at different times, we'll be dealing with you'll be dealing with a couple and then sometimes the parents, and sometimes you see some people that are really sort of under pressure with, you know, a wedding.
Yeah.
You do see that, people that will be under massive pressure, and that the wedding is a huge deal, and you're genuine. And I can think of a few cases where we've been dealing with that, and you can see people coming in, you can feel the tension of the situation, and in the end the wedding sometimes sadly doesn't go ahead because
another nice touch that we have with the Lovespoon, of course, is that often for a wedding, a flower girl will present the bride
with the Lovespoon for the wedding.
With the Lovespoon.
And we put a little bow and things like that on it for them.
And that's a nice touch because you know, the sort of traditionally it would be like a horseshoe, wouldn't it?
That's it. We've done those before as well.
Yeah,
we
made
horseshoes.
A few wooden ones, saying that.
Yeah.
In the shape of a horseshoe.
That's coming on. I'm going to go round the surround now.
Can I blow the stuff you got? Can you take out the voice a second, Dave?
What do you spotted?
I want to show you something.
What do you want to show me?
Take it away.
Yeah.
You see, look there. Those little bits sometimes they mark the underneath, and I usually end up with the job of shellacking the underneath part, and then you just see a little indentation of the little bit of wood chip.
It gets stuck underneath.
That, you know, may just make a mark on the back. I know it's a sort of it may be over the top, but when we make the spoons, we're just as concerned with the back and the sides of the spoons as we are with the front of the spoon.
Just as well, if anyone saw a hole there that looked a bit suspicious, as in woodworm or anything like that, it wasn't. It was basically where I started drilling to do the pierce work, and I positioned the drill wrong, but I knew I hadn't gone too far, and I'd get it back out when I was carving it, so it wasn't anything to be worried about on that front either. Here we are. Oh, we missed a few here. It's not old-fashioned, Western culture, chivalry, etc. Traditionally, the man is seen as head of the household, the provider and protected. Because of that, the male's name goes first, and she's taking his name easier to find in the phone. So my new refined answer: traditional, groom first, bride second. Non-traditional depends on who's dominant in the relationship. Meaning if he takes a name and put the bride first. So there we are. There we are. Some interesting ideas. See?
Yeah.
Very interesting.
But you wouldn't think that making Lovespoons.
No, you wouldn't think that we'd be thinking through all these different things. But this is what happens: is that you find yourself in all sorts of different circumstances. And what we also find, I can think of a Lovespoon that we did in a live stream, and as you're doing it, you're thinking about, you know, the people. And the other thing, when people are commissioning a spoon to be done, and for instance, if they're the parents of the couple or things like that, you quite often see that they're really under pressure, and they'll spend a lot of time with us getting the most minor details.
Yeah. Things
that we will look at and think, well, they're probably not even going to notice that. Yeah. But they worry about getting them absolutely spot on, getting everything just right. Not easy, not straightforward. There we are. So as you can see, we're just working on shaping, just beveling those edges. This bit here, for instance, see, I've got to come back up the other way, working in the opposite direction.
I'll tell you something this spoon as well highlights. The change. We used to use carbon paper
Yeah.
put the names and the details on, whereas you've actually you know.
Well, that's going to cause me an issue with this, a little bit, because I think I'm probably going to have to carve them 3 times. Because when I sand it off,
right.
I'm going to lose all the detail.
Yeah.
So, but it is what it is. It is what it is.
But it's certainly better than if we use carbon paper.
Yeah.
You'd be losing the detail very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. But this is the thing, is strengths, every method, every technique, it's always the same. There's a strength to it and there's a weakness to it. So for instance, the strength we're doing it in this way, you have the names on there clearly and you don't have to think too much. I didn't have to think too much about my levels and keeping everything in a straight line because I had it all there marked ready for me. That's the strength of it. The weakness is when we sand off the names. It's going to be that much more work then afterwards.
Well, what about this one then, Dave? I noticed Doreen, as you look at it,
Yeah.
is on the left.
Yeah.
Barry is on the right.
Yeah.
So whose suggestion was that?
That was his.
There we are.
There we go. That was his after.
So I presume it was the same on the previous spoon that he had.
I'm thinking, yeah. So in this case, he's put it that way around. So this is, yeah. So that's the choice in this situation. There we are. So you can see we're well on with the top section. That is probably the most. Let me think. We're well on with that top section. It's probably the most sort of. I think that badge is probably the part of the spoon that has got the most carving.
You've got a bit of work on the church.
We got the church as the second.
Yeah.
But I don't think the church is as much carving with all of the detail around the outside and the words.
You have to be very patient with the badge, whereas with the church, it's a little bit, it's not sort of stretching your patience.
Yeah. But it's coming on. Yeah. It's taking shape. I mean, the badge I probably want to do a little bit more on as well. Yeah, the church, what I'm working out with the church, if we finishing off, just explain that. We've got this sort of stop cut. I think we need, here's a chisel that we don't use very often. Nicely made though. Basically, I'm working out that...
No, I have slightly more of an angle on there, you say?
On where, sorry?
On the church.
Well, what I'm working out is that this is going to be sort of pushed back at a 45, and then that is going to be pushed back at a 45.
Yeah.
That's my...
I understand.
That's my thought process, is that it's going to go 45 and 45.
I would have had that one there, that line there, slightly...
I'm with you.
Higher there. I'm
with you. You want it a bit more... Oop, drop the gouge. You want that...
Only a touch.
Slightly like that.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Yeah, that's no problem.
Because as you go...
Yeah.
As it goes deeper, it gives you a bit of perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah, so we got a bit of angle on there. And then I'll mark the sort of stop cuts like so. And then...
Chisel on the floor.
Back the other way. Yeah, that was the one I just dropped. Thanks for that.
There he goes.
So yeah, we're just marking out. So that'll be the front. I don't want too much angle. And then we're going to push. And I think what we're probably going to do, see, my thought process on this one, let's get the right gouge, is to push I will push back this. I tell you what I will also do whilst I'm at this stage. Yeah. So we're going to put a line across here, and I might have to refer back to my original drawing to put the detail back on. So you can see we just got little bits of detail like that. So we're just going to push that back at an angle. There we are. And so the idea is that it creates that image of the church where that is falling back in this direction. So you're sort of looking at the church at like a 45-degree angle. Let's look at children of birth, order left to right. Be specific, my parents have 9 grands, so I have some practice there of this order. Very interesting. Interesting though as well how much debate it's created. Thomas the Woodcarver putting those ideas out there, see? So what the idea with this is just very quickly to give you an idea of what we're going to do with this, just as we come to the end of the live stream. So we just, that angle there, we'll see that the church is being pushed back kind of at a 45, and then the roof I'll take down at a different angle again, so we get a bit more shape on it, and then the tower of the church I'll push back in the opposite direction. So this gets pushed back a long way, the roof, like so. And then this church will be pushed back in the opposite direction, like so. So that's just to give you an idea of where I'm going to go with the carving of the church. Is to create a more of a 3-dimensional look and feel to it. But there we are. Hopefully that's interesting. What I will probably do, I might film a time lapse of this so you can see the rest of it taking shape. As always, thank you for joining us. We'll have an upload on Wednesday. So we'll have something different for everyone to see, some different ideas that will hopefully be useful. I'll probably, as I said, with this one, so everybody can see all of the engraving, how much goes into that. We'll do another video, possibly a time lapse for you to see all of the hand engraving. And that's our Lovespoon, our giant Lovespoon starting to take shape. There we are. Hopefully that's interesting. Thanks for joining us. Hope everyone has a good week. And as always, we'll be back again soon with more videos. Well, thank you all. I was at present counter at Christmas time, as were my 3 brothers, so there were some basic rules to maintain order. Don't buy for one unless you buy for all, minus birthdays. Spot on. Good day to you both. Yeah. No, thanks for joining us. Thanks as always for supporting us, and thanks for your thoughts and your input. Really grateful. Thanks again.